Tonight we're going to be preaching out of Mark chapter 6. Let me just give you some background on this as we go through. And on the way up to take Andrew to Bible college, I was praying on the way up, and yes, I was in the car with him, and yes, he was driving. So yes, I was praying and praying a little bit harder. But as I was going up, I began to think, and I've been reading in the book of Hebrews, and as I was praying, I was like, Lord, I just need somebody to encourage me. I was like, Lord, who can I call and ask him to pray for me? And it was as if the Holy Ghost of God said, do you remember what you read earlier this week? Yes, I did. And it says, and that Christ being our great high priest, and that we have not a high priest which cannot be touched with the feelings of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted as we are, and yet without sin. And I began to think on that, and I looked back through some of the scriptures and just thought back through some of the scriptures about how that Christ not only was tempted, but experienced some things that we go through in life as well. And you say, what do you mean had some of those experiences? He dealt with people. He dealt with loss. He dealt with just the different emotions in life. And the Lord I was talking to a guy this week. Do you realize that the Lord in the Scriptures, we may read it when we're 10 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old, 25, 30, 35, 40, and so on. But every time I read the Bible, I get something different. But you say, why? Because it's different at that time. I'm different. It's not different. I'm different. And God says, here, I got this for you at this time. And so I was looking through that, and then I just shared with you some changes there in our lives and in our ministry. And I want to take a look at Mark chapter number 6, and we're going to go through the whole chapter here. I promise you, though, I won't be too long because we're just going to overview most of it and get to a point. But in Mark chapter number 6, the Bible talks about Christ, and He went out in verse number 1 from thence and came into His own country, and His disciples followed Him. And He went to the Sabbath, and when the Sabbath was come, He began teaching in the synagogue.